Hello to all. First of all, if you are thinking it is strange for me to speak in English, be speaking in English since I am a native Portuguese speaker. I upload Portuguese videos in my YouTube channel. I actually doing this because I will analyze, react to the ideas exposed in the conversation between Jordan Peterson and Alex O'Connor, which was aired yesterday in his YouTube channel. The conversation is profoundly stimulating, intellectually speaking. The ideas are very rich and could be explored a lot more from a Christian perspective, since I'm Catholic. And like you all know, for at least the people who watch my Portuguese videos, or who know me personally, they know that I have a high esteem for Jordan Peterson. I consider him a master of some sort. He taught me a lot during my formative years, from a late adolescent to a young adult, which I still am. And I think it's more proper to react to the video and discuss the ideas in the native language that they are speaking. For my Portuguese listeners, who are the majority, if someone is going to watch it and is not Portuguese or didn't know my YouTube channel, well, feel free to do the opposite that I will show you here. So the people who watch me and don't know English very well, the YouTube site has a functionality that you can translate automatically the information between being displayed in the video. So at first it would be in English auto-generated, but you can translate it using auto-translate to whichever language that you prefer. So for the most people, they will choose to use Portuguese. I will try to speak more slowly because I know my diction is not perfect. My diction was made for speaking Portuguese. My fluency is not perfect also, and probably during the process of auto translation, the translating my speech to English and then translating the subtitles in auto-generated in English to auto-translate in Portuguese probably won't be perfect. So I will try to give my best speech and my best diction, but I don't make a lot of promises. I don't have the habit of speaking in English and conveying complex ideas, which I will try to do here in a language that is different from my own. It is already difficult doing that in Portuguese, and I am sure I will have more difficulties doing that in English, but nonetheless, I will try. I think the debate is important. For the people who are watching in the smartphone, the same functionality is available to auto-generate the subtitles to English, and then you auto-translate to whichever language that you are listening to or you speak. So the conversation between Jordan Peterson and Cosmic Skeptic is 2 hours long, so I won't bore you guys to death with a 4-hour long analysis of the conversation with every single point. If there's a point that I judge that is not really relevant to the topics that I want to approach here in this video, I will skip that. Since the video is 2 hours long, the topics that I approach are very profound, very deep. I will try to chunk the upload of this video or the approach that I do on this video in chunks of 20 minutes each. So I will first analyze the 20 minutes of the conversation, and then for the next couple of weeks and months, I will upload the rest of my analysis and thoughts about the conversation in 20 minutes chunks. Okay, so let's begin and see what these guys have to talk about. Okay, I will mute myself because I know that my mic has a background noise which is annoying. So yeah.
So I'm here today speaking with Alex O'Connor, who's flown in from London. I'm in LA. He's known also as Cosmic Skeptic, and he runs a podcast Within Reason. And so you can subscribe to and listen to that podcast, watch it on YouTube. Alex was recommended to me by a friend of mine, John Vervaeke, who was a professor along with me at the University of Toronto. I've done a lot of different public events with John, many conversations. And Alex has interviewed many of the people that I'm interested in, including Richard Dawkins, and he is very interested in religious matters, although he's not a Christian. And we believed jointly that it would be useful for us to meet and to hash out our differences in viewpoint and similarities and see if we could get together and move together somewhere valuable and enlightening. And so that's what we're trying to do. That's what we try to do with the conversation. It focuses mostly on the nature of belief, I suppose. That's probably the easiest way to sum it up. What it means to believe something, what it means to have a religious belief, what it means to be committed to a belief. We talk a fair bit about the distinction between, let's say, the distinction between fact and fiction, and the idea that fact reflects the real, but so does fiction. And so, welcome to the discussion of all that.
So you already can see Jordan Peterson in the introduction to the 2-hour-long video that is ahead of us, giving a brief summary of what he approached and conversed with Alex O'Connor, which is a skeptic, and he also described himself as a skeptic and someone who uses skepticism as a rational tool to achieve truth, which is completely fine and a noble endeavor in my estimation. And you already can see that Jordan Peterson, which is kind of a normal trope for him in the last couple of months, I guess, since he's approaching the Christian faith more thoroughly and more as explicitly as he can be, because he's a public figure and he has his feet yet still in secular society and secular thinking, but like he himself auto-describes himself, he's someone who's lives and habits the border of things. I believe this way that Jordan Peterson perceives himself is that he's a bridge between the secular worldview that is permeated today in our society, the secular materialistic and reductionistic worldview promulgated by the postmodernist, which is a mighty critique of, and the Christian and religious vocabulary and symbolism, which he correctly, in my estimation, values as valuable. So I believe that Jordan Peterson sees himself as this bridge. For example, he is using a more or less caricature suit. His suits of many saints, which is a clear allusion of his estimation for the Christian faith, and is very proper and is very proper seeing the development of the conversation with, specifically speaking, the faith of Jordan Peterson and what he believes in the last couple of months, with a lot of people, a lot of podcasters asking him if he believes in God, and he always, in a sense, tries to evade the question or tries to direct the question and his answer to other fronts, such as, what do you mean by believing God? In this conversation, Jordan makes it more clear that he wants a proper definition of belief, because he doesn't think that what people think belief is what actually belief is, which is a fairly good point of him, I guess. I also agree with that. But it doesn't stop being annoying, I guess, for Christians to see Jordan Peterson evading the question. And I think Alex O'Connor in this conversation made the best attempt and managed to get the best outcome of an answer, objective answer from Jordan Peterson regarding his beliefs, personal beliefs in the afterlife, Christian faith, the reality of Christ, and the reality of God. And I don't think, at least for the next couple of years, or I don't think we will see a more explicit Jordan than we will see in this conversation. So just just a little 2 cents before he actually begins the conversation with Alex, okay?
So first of all, thank you for coming here. It's a long way from London. We're in LA, and so that's a long ways. And so, and insofar as you're going to disagree with me, I'm pleased that you're exhausted from the flight because that'll slow you down and that'll be helpful. So anyways, seriously, thank you for coming. And
Of course.
so let's start with this, Cosmic Skeptic. Right. Okay. So how do you come up with the name and why the conjunction and what do you think the advantage is, if any, in relationship to the emphasis on skepticism?
I'll give you the official and the unofficial story. The official story is that cosmic sort of implies universe.
I think I will skip this part because it's just Alex explaining why the name of his channel and the name of his endeavor is Cosmic Skeptic, which does have a funny turn of events, and he's trying to be funny here, and I guess he managed. He's pretty funny. If you want to watch it, go watch it. But for the conversation, for the rest of the kind of conversation, I don't think it is very relevant. So I will skip to the part that I'm most interested in.
Well, it's catchy, so that's nice from
Yeah,
a
it's
marketing
catchy.
side. Combination of revelation and critical thinking that actually makes up actual thinking,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because the problem with being concerned with a vast plethora of ideas is that many ideas are misleading and wrong. And so you have to learn how to combine that openness and curiosity with the capacity to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
And that's the utility of skepticism. I mean, it can degenerate into a kind of argumentative nihilism. That's the downside. But properly applied, it separates the wheat from the chaff, right? And the purpose of that is to keep the wheat.
Well, skepticism can only ever be essentially destructive because you're being skeptical of something. Somebody's putting something forward and you're sort of responding to that with skepticism. And so for a lot of people, if skepticism is the thing that you do, then you sort of end up chipping away and ending up with nothing, whereas skepticism is really supposed to be a tool that you use. It is destructive, but in the way that you might sort of carve a piece of marble.
Yeah, right.
You're intending to get a statue out of it at the end.
Yes. Well, that's the thing to always keep in mind. Is
So the first comments that I will make about this idea of skepticism can only be destructive, that is actually pretty spot on. A lot of people that I know that are skeptic about anything, they don't use exactly this way of approaching skepticism, and they aren't even conscious that they are being skeptical. It's just that their default mode of operation, for example. But what I guess Jordan and Alex try to convey here in this point about skepticism being used as a tool to achieve the truth and separate the wheat from the chaff is actually because if you use skepticism as a tool, it is for an end, right? So any skepticism that you apply in any circumstances of your life must be done so true to achieve an end, right? And this end for Alex, and I guess for Jordan also, is achieve what is true. And a lot of people just use skepticism for the sake of skepticism, which is completely destructive and pedantic and nihilistic and probably cynical. And so this is my first comment about this idea of destructive skepticism. Yes, skepticism is destructive, but if applied to an end, it could be not constructive because that would be contradictory, but it could be useful. It could be a useful tool to achieving the truth, which is an enterprise and endeavor that is both are very committed to. Okay.
Skepticism in the service of something.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a tool. It's a methodological tool. It's not a world.
And you mentioned too, and so I'm interested in your progression in your thinking in relationship to that, because you mentioned just before we actually went on air that had you come to see me a couple of years ago, you might have been more inclined to, I'm putting words in your mouth to some degree, so correct me if I'm wrong, to strive for a victory or to make your point, something like that. And you alluded to the fact that your thinking around that has changed to some degree. I suspect that's probably a consequence of experience. So what's changed?
In part, it might have something to do with becoming a podcaster and speaking
Yeah.
weekly to people. And you can't keep up that energy, or you can, but it becomes totally unwatchable, and nobody wants to engage in that all the time. I think
No.
No one supports pedantic little shit. I speak from experience, okay? So I see the point of Alex, and it's a very mature attitude from him.
There are times when it's worth doing, and to be clear, I still like to disagree and do so essentially unapologetically and bluntly, and that can still come across as quite rude. But I think that the way that I would think about a conversation is that, well, what are we about to do here? A debate. We're about to debate an issue, and I'm going to try to win. And that's, and not even, I mean, maybe there's sort of an element of pride in there. You want to win for that sake, but also you really think, well, I want to win because I think I'm right about this. And if I don't, then, I must have just not expressed myself properly. I think
Here's a piece of here is an affirmation of him that I guess, ironically speaking, he's expressing himself. He did not express himself properly here because, well, if you go to a conversation and you actually don't manage to win, or a debate, I'm sorry, not a conversation. If you go to a debate and you actually end up losing, well, it could be very well the case that you did not express yourself properly, but to assume that as a first option is a sign of pride. So the more skeptical approach would be, maybe if I lost the debate in this point, maybe my worldview is wrong. So just a little correction, and using the skepticism that he so much pray for and preaches to his own advantage. I am sure that Alex thinks something along those lines, but ironically speaking, I guess he expressed himself poorly in this case.
What I probably meant when I was saying that is that I would have had more of that cap on than now, after having so many conversations with so many people and realizing that not only is it more constructive for myself, I've learned a lot more. And now I'm here like, hey, I might learn something today. That would be great. Even if I just learn something about what your worldview is. But also people listening just unanimously say that they prefer it. It's a much...
Well, the skepticism. So one of the things you learn as a therapist, for example, is that being right is not very helpful, especially when you're trying to help someone, because whether you as the therapist is right has very little to do with the positive outcome for them. You still want to maintain the skepticism. And one of the ways of doing that in the manner that's helpful is that, like, if I'm talking to you and you say something I don't understand, that's the right place to be skeptical, because if I don't understand what you said, well, it might be my ignorance, but it also might be like lack of clarity and pointedness on your part. And so one of the advantages of disagreeing with someone is to point out to them in a positive way where they're lost in the fog. Because if you're sufficiently lost in the fog, you tend to run into sharp objects, and that's not very pleasant.
So yeah, Jordan approaches here more or less what I was trying to convey. The idea that, well, when you are in debating someone, and I won't use the word lose the debate, but there is miscommunication and misapprehension. You guys miss the point of one another, and you can apply this rule of thumb to any conversation that you have with anyone. Human communication is the first step to actually comprehending the worldview of someone else and conveying your worldview. So if you are thinking you are right all the time and you are striving for being right, or doesn't even consider the possibility that you are wrong in actually the opposite of that, the escalation of that, the possibility that you are probably wrong in most of your assumptions about the world. Other people would call this cognitive dissonance. Then you are severely lacking and missing out the opportunity to carve out the good ideas that you have and carve out the bad ideas that you have and maintain the good ones and properly make them more robust. In scholastics, and the first person that I have knowledge of that applied this method of rhetoric, I could say, is St. Thomas Aquinas, which, contrary to the strawman proposition, which is try to deprive all of the arguments of the other person from its meaningful substance and reversed it with false claims or exaggerations or caricatures, views or superficiality. The I-Romanian argument is actually, well, I will try to see the light and I will try to see the meaning and the value in the argument of the other person, even if that seems to me as unfruitful. Doing that in the ultimate instance will probably more or less give you more fruit from your argument, because if you beat an argument that was weak and you made it even stronger and you beat the stronger argument, well, you won't have more problems facing weaker arguments than the one that you just topple over. So yeah, this is all resumes, I guess, summarizes to humility, intellectual humility, right? I'm divagating, the video is already 20 minutes. I guess this part of skepticism is only introductory. The best part here is actually entering in the realm of the belief per se. And Alex O'Connor tries to face off and confront Jordan Peterson about his objective belief and the questions he's asked constantly about his beliefs in the afterlife, God, the Christian faith, and etc. So let's go to that.
But what you were saying a moment ago about precision, about sort of thinking clearly and understanding somebody else clearly, I think the reason why I'm excited to speak to you today is because you're someone who celebrates being precise in your speech.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always appreciated your desire to make sure that you're really understanding what somebody else is saying. I've made attempts in the past my channel is mostly focused on the philosophy of religion.
Yes.
And I've made attempts in the past to try to understand your worldview.
Yeah,
your
I
religious
some
worldview.
of them.
And I made a video essay. And some of the things I said there, I think, at least one thing in particular, I'd probably think I was wrong about. But what I was trying to do there, I've seen that people would ask you on interviews and podcasts, do you believe in God? Do you think that Christianity is true? And it was sort of, you would sort of struggle to answer the question. And I thought to myself, well,
people come at the question with a priori commitments about what they think truth constitutes.
Yeah,
that's a big problem.
There must be something important that's being left out of the sort of precondition of that question or conversation. If it's so unimaginably difficult to answer,
Well, I'll give you an example. I watched that essay this morning. Right, and I also wanted to talk to you about your discussion with Dawkins.
Yeah.
So people ask me, for example, do you believe in God? And I think, well, I don't know what you are driving at with that question, because I don't know what you mean by believe. Most people, modern people, believe that a belief is a description of accordance with a set of facts.
Sure.
Right. Well, I don't think that's what belief means in the religious sense in the least. So I just think that's a non-starter.
Something to do with what you act out, right?
It has to do with what you believe is what you're willing to die for. Fundamentally, it's what you're committed to or live for, if you think about it as life in the most extensive manner. It's a matter of commitment.
So I understand what you mean in the religious context.
Yeah.
So, but religion is a big topic. Religion is a mighty area to be talking about. But when I talk about belief in a more mundane sense, like I believe that this chair exists.
Yeah.
Like that is a belief that I hold. I sort of can't help but hold that belief because I can see it. Right?
Well, that's a place where your action and your statements align.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is
you
why
believe in the chair and you're sitting in it. It's like fair enough.
Which is why I totally agree when you say that what you believe might really be what you act out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when people are looking for essentially definitions, and just a second ago you said, well, what is it to believe? And you said, well, what you believe is what you're willing to die for.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to die for my belief that this chair exists.
Maybe.
Maybe in a broad sense. If not
Hard to
believing,
say,
if not
but
believing
I-
that the chair existed required me to sort of give up my trust in my sense data,
Right.
then I might literally die by accident by sort of walking off a cliff because I don't trust.
This here is very important because I made an article, a personal article, and posted in my Facebook account, my Facebook feed, which I try to convey the idea of the tessiture of reality based on senses, you could say. So, the empiricists like David Hume presupposes that all the information and all the things that we can actually know in the universe are based on experience. And he's partially right in this affirmation. For example, Hume, which was a radical empiricist, even made the claim, for example, that we can't prove causality or something like that, because the basis which you use to presume causality in the universe are statistical. For example, I don't really know for sure that the sun will come out tomorrow at 6, 7 a.m. here in where I live, which is in the equator line. But since I already have such experience with this fact, with this event, this phenomena, the sun coming out more or less in the same time of the day, and if I read history and talk to people older than I, they all will say, yeah, the sun will come out tomorrow, but that isn't a certainty. That is not certain. The best thing that you can actually do is approach and attain a probable scenario based on your senses and based on your experiences, and your experiences are based on your senses. So we have 5 senses. We have the hearing, we have our taste buds, or smelling sense, the hearing, my seeing, and my touch. So these are 5 ways of processing information about the reality that are completely different from one another, qualitatively speaking, but they all point to the same consequence, or the same outcome. So for example, I have 5 senses telling me that, for example, this eraser is real, it's concrete. But I could be, for example, I could be delusional, or I could be schizophrenic. I could have some sort of mental or brain disorder, which could alienate and alterate my perception of reality through my senses. But that's the important part. When you have a lot of people doing the same thing and attesting to the same reality, then you have a very coherent and very safe presupposition of reality, of the objectivity and concretitivity of the subject, such as an eraser, for example, to be able to make the leap of faith from not absolute certainty to, well, I could deposit my trust in the existence of this object as a material reality. So what I will argue in the next couple of videos, I am thinking of ending this video right now, because 30 minutes, I guess, a good time stamp, a good time mark to end a video. And we already started to enter into the conversation per se, which is belief and what is actually belief for people. What is important in this conversation is that the metaphysical and the transcendental realities that Alex O'Connor and Jordan Peterson are trying to communicate and trying to reach a middle ground for communication, they also partake in the same process of information acquiring in the universe, in reality. So if you're trying to approach a topic, for example, such as does the Christian faith is real? Does God really exist? Did Jesus Christ resurrect? When you apply the same level of analysis through different input of information, such as the senses, but since we're dealing here with transcendental realities and transcendental and metaphysical presuppositions, then you can also use inputs of information that are more abstract, such as, for example, history, philosophy, and eyewitness accounts, and so on and so forth. You can use logical axioms, and all these tools of inquiry and acquiring information from the reality lead you to be able to be close enough to certainty to be able to make the leap of faith, even if with things that you are not absolutely 100% certain about the concrete reality. So I guess I will try to finish the video here in 12 minutes, and in the next couple of days I will try to post the next one, okay? If you are watching till now, I appreciate your patronship, your audience, and well, give me tips and give me your thoughts about my analysis. I know it's not very fluent, but I try to make I make an effort here to convey my ideas, try to translate my ideas, my mental framework to English. So it's not very easy to do so. It's the first time that I make it's the first time that I make a React video, and it's the first time that I make one in English, which is not my primary language, my first language, right? So I guess I will end the video here, and I see you guys in the next video, which I probably will post from Chile, because I am traveling in the next Friday to Chile to visit my mom. I don't see my parents from 5 years. The last time I saw my parents was when I was 19 and was coming back to Manaus, to Brazil, to finish my studies in engineering, and I came to live alone. So I'm very excited for that, and I appreciate your audience, and any criticism that you want to make, feel free to do so, okay? So there you go. Also, my literary analysis and my book review club will continue. The book that we are analyzing right now in this month is from Giovanni Reale. In Portuguese is O Saber dos Antigos, which could be translated to the knowledge of the ancients, or the knowledge of the sages. You could say the old people, the traditions, and the knowledge, the wisdom, the traditional school of thought and philosophers, the philosophical tradition has, which could save or potentially alleviate the problems of our nihilistic world, okay? So it will continue. Probably in the midst of June we will post a reaction, commentary, discussion between the other members of the group about this piece of literature, okay? So there we go. I appreciate your audience, and have a good day.